What are the best metal albums of early American death metal? Let's let the riffs decide. Welcome to Metal Forge Reviews, where you can get the most out of your metal releases. Brandon and Benfo here to talk about the best of late 80s to mid 2000s American death metal.
Well, first of all, we asked our audience, what do you guys and gals prefer between the American and Swedish big four of death metal? And you guys had some great comments. The results were actually kind of surprising. An overwhelming support of 69%. Nice. Preferred American death metal over Sweden.
I was personally blown away by the numbers, as I generally edge a bit towards Swedish, but that got me thinking, what are the best death metal albums of these death metal bands that make it into this debate of the big four of American death metal?
That's a great question, and we're gonna go through our own picks for our favorite American death metal records and bands. Let us know in the comment what your big four are, and what are the albums that you'd pick too. If you dig this video, hit that like and subscribe button if you want more metal content just like this.
My first pick for my big four is Morbid Angel, and my album is Altars of Madness, released in 1989. There are a few records that have come out in the death metal genre that can compete with how much I love Altars of Madness. Their debut full-length on Earache Records, the world was 100% not ready for how unbelievably important this album was to death metal. This record sounds like a layer of hell. The production is absolutely filthy and completely perfect. Every song is a total banger, and as a metal guitarist, the phasey guitar sound is one of my favorite things about this album. Whenever I mess with death metal productions on my own, I actually try to imitate and add some of their production tricks because I love them so much. You can easily pick Covenant or Domination as your favorite Morbid Angel record, but to this day, I still find Altars of Madness hard to top. It's a perfect metal record over 30 years later, and metal bands are still trying to top it. Not gonna happen.
To me, Cannibal Corpse is a staple in the American death metal scene, hands down, no doubt about it. The band has been around since the genre began to find its own footing. They went all in on the death themes with songs about extreme levels of violence. Unlike some other death metal bands that try to play fast and technical while remaining heavy, Corpse has always had a slew of incredibly talented musicians at their disposal. Their unstoppable riffing is showcased in monstrous albums like Eaten Back to Life, Tomb of the Mutilated, and Bloodthirst. There are loads of bands still pulling from the Bloodthirst playbook. Low-tuned guitars, brutality contrasted with groove, and riffs that just pull your head apart. Cannibal Corpse is still piling bodies and setting them aflame to this day. This was the band that got me into death metal, and their music brought me a lot of excitement as somebody who is looking for something all things heavier and faster and gorier and bloodier. Cannibal Corpse was the band that opened the hatch to the underworld of the extreme for me, and for that, I am very grateful.
Cannibal Corpse is absolutely deserving to be on somebody's top four. They're actually not on my top four, but I do owe it to them for introducing me to harsh vocals, because when I was little and I saw Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, it was the first time I was introduced to Cannibal Corpse with Hammer Smash Face, and obviously I'm a huge metal fanatic since. So thank you, Cannibal Corpse. The next one on my list is Obituary with the album Cause of Death. This was released in 1990, and whenever I think of Florida death metal, there's a short list of classic death metal records that come to mind. I almost picked Slowly We Rot for the Obituary slot, but I have to go with Cause of Death for its far more refined songwriting. The riffs on Cause of Death are absolutely disgusting in the most primitive and groovy way, and it's one of the reasons why I love Obituary so much is their simplicity. The music is about groove and catchy riffs instead of the relentless technical riffing or showmanship. The album itself feels like one long song, and that's a great nod to the songwriting on the album. Few death metal bands capture the sound of humidity and the stench of death. This album is essential listening for any death metal fan. Get on it.
No one has quite flipped the fringes of the extreme subgenre of technical death metal on its head quite like Nile has. Spearheaded by main composer Carl Sanders, this band took elements of folk and world music by bringing in the Middle Eastern themes and elements and blending them with the heaviest and most technical death metal imagined. If you ask me, it wasn't until Annihilation of the Wicked, their debut with George Callias in 2005, that the band was really able to focus on a sound that really worked in their favor. It was equal parts brutal, technical, and slamming, with tremendous grooves and lead-melting solos. I was really happy with the sonic qualities on that record, in the record since. The band has left behind that 8-bit Nintendo sound, and is finally in the big leagues for sonic qualities. This band is going to go down in metal history as one of the most unique bands in a super unique niche genre. I cannot talk about American death metal without talking about Nile. Praise be to Imhotep.
Wherever we go, whatever we do, you're down with not far behind.
Last one on my list is Death, and my album choice is Symbolic, released in 1995. Few riffs in metal are as iconic as the intro to Symbolic. This album to this day is easily one of the most influential albums on me and how I write metal music. Symbolic is also one of the first metal albums with harsh vocals that I actually cared about the lyrics. This record to me marks Death's full transformation into progressive territory. What impresses me so much about Death in this era of their writing is their ability to change tempo, tone, mood, and sounds seamlessly without ever compromising the flow of their music. The vocals are unbelievably expressive, and the performances are completely unparalleled. Easily one of the most important extreme metal albums ever written. I don't think I will ever get sick of it. If you're interested, I actually covered Symbolic on my cover channel with a good friend of mine. Metal is a beautiful thing, folks. It brings people together in the best way, and this album has done that for me with so many people.
So, we've already talked about my big four, it looks like, because my big four are Death, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, and Morbid Angel. So I decided to pick a couple bands that I thought were outliers, but were important for me and my take on how death metal affected my life. Anyone that is butthurt that I picked Misery Index over Dying Fetus, I just don't care enough. Sorry, it's no contest in my book over here, folks. Misery Index is the leveled up version of Dying Fetus. Moving away from the typical death metal lyrics of guts, pus, and gore, Misery Index wanted to take a totally different route by naming their band after an economic indicator that portrays unemployment rate added to the inflation rate. Their lyrics are politically oriented with relevant questions to authority and bureaucrats. Their music is fucking insane. Their 2003 debut album, Retaliate, is totally crushing. My personal favorite, though, is their 2010 release, The Heirs to Thievery. That album has some of the heaviest riffs I've ever heard on it. The production is absolutely punishing, and the band hasn't stopped since. Unemployment, poverty, starvation, global economic meltdowns. These are real, way more real than zombies and hell spawns. That's why I find Misery Index's music to be much more palatable to me. Their perspectives are theirs, sure, but they're basing it in reality, not some fantasy horror show. And that's what scares me the most.
Next one on my list, and the next one in my big four, is Suffocation, Pierced from Within, released in 1995. Suffocation put on a hell of a live show, and they are absolutely what I would consider the gold standard to what technical, brutal death metal should sound like, in my opinion. The guitar tone on this record is woolly, scooped, and slammy. I'd even argue that Suffocation were the inventors of what became the abomination that is slam death metal. Yes, it is an abomination genre. Sorry, not sorry. But who cares about that? Pierce from Within upped the ante on what brutal technical death metal can do with fantastic songwriting. The songs shred and dominate the tech death landscape even today, and Pierce from Within is easily one of the most innovative death metal records among all of the modern death metal releases. It's rare that I love death metal with breakdowns, and this record is some of the best examples of what great breakdowns should sound like. The production is absolutely filthy, the bass tone is loud and growly, one of my favorites on any death metal album ever. Amazing album if you love tech death. So what is your big four of American death metal? Is there anything you haven't heard yet and you're interested in checking out? I'm jealous if you've missed one of these albums. Leave a comment!
Yeah, please do that. Hit us up on our socials as well. Thanks for liking and subscribing. As always, go with the gods. See you in the crypts.